Good morning, Alan.
Good evening, Leanne.
Great to see you on another Talk the Walk episode. And how's that martini tasting for you?
Oh, it's the perfect time of day. Actually, any time is a perfect time of day, but this is good.
One day I will join with an Irish coffee. Today is not that day. How have Thank you. Now, look, I know you've come back you've been in Florida.
Yeah.
You've been running some incredible session. Tell us more about that.
Well, it was my 10th Thought Leadership Conference. And we had 16 people, which is about as much as I want to take for these, so everybody has airtime. But it was a combination of people who've been with me for 20 years and people who've been with me for, 20 months. So it was a very nice, diverse group, 3 countries. And we had a hell of a good time, and we, exchanged a lot of great information, had some good meals. So it was wonderful. And it's you're doing just the opposite. You're on a solo retreat there, getting your head together, right?
Yeah, I'm calling it the radical reboot because I just love giving things a name, but it has been a radical reboot. I think often I'm only an hour away from my home, but just in a beautiful environment, and just shifting that up has been incredible. Honestly, you love going away to great locations as well. Like, what's the impact of just heading out?
Well, I didn't get anything you said after radical reboot because you were speaking so fast, but I didn't guess what you said. I think it's wonderful to just to get into a different environment where you're not used to everything and it's nothing is sort of normal in your life, and you see different wildlife and you talk to different people and you have different experiences. I remember once my wife and I were, God knows where in Italy. We've been there a lot of times, and she's Italian for 100 years. And we walked past this little cafe, and there are these, 4 or 5 older people, and they're having their pastry and their espresso, and you could just see them doing this every day of the week, and we actually sat down for a while and said, could we move here? Is this something we'd like to do every morning? And, we just decided basically not to, because I couldn't get my cars over there. But we thought about it because it just looked like such a pleasant kind of a daily endeavor.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I have been on the real estate website here just because there's beautiful cafes, the dogs are enjoying it. It's just great. Now, the value of bringing people together. Hey, Dee Dee, great to have you here on the live stream. Dee Dee has shared that the Thought Leadership event has set her on a new path already. It's the impact of getting people together. And that's why I'm excited to join you in Vegas. It's why, we had a really successful event actually a couple of weeks ago, our rooftop event.
Yeah,
it was really fun, over 150 people, and just continue to get really great feedback from that. So there is real utility in bringing people together. And if you are here live, let us know in chat, where are you joining us from? Now, Alan, we've had a ton of people register for today's topic. And I'm curious, is it the topic? Is it because we've been consistent? I don't know. Is it because you're just awesome? What? I don't know what the variables are. Maybe it is the topic.
I am awesome, but that's just a given. No, I think it's, was this our 8th session?
It's our 8th.
Yeah. So, people are sort of getting used to us being here and knowing that we're here. I think expressing value is a really important factor. And I think this time of day also is probably convenient for a lot of people all over the world. So, but who cares? I don't care if it's just you and me. It's a good time.
I agree. Yeah. And I'm learning a lot from you and having to slow my speech down so you understand my accent.
I only know of 2 people who speak faster than I do, and you're one of them.
Oh, who's the other? Can you share that?
Yes, Lisa Tesla in Iowa.
Oh, I love Lisa.
She was a Thought Leadership.
Oh, and Lisa, I know.
And it's almost like you have to sort of record it and then play it back slower. And, I'll get back to you tomorrow once I sort of...
Doesn't quite work on a live stream. Now, we do have a lot of great people joining us today. G'day, John, from the beaches of Southern Delaware. We've got a LinkedIn user from Toronto that's joining us. Great to have you here. AJ from Bath, UK. Loving Alan's Bentley shirt. Wow, some good observation there. I would not have picked that up.
Thank you very much, AJ. Yeah.
Yeah, really good.
A lot of clients in England.
And we've got a LinkedIn user from the bowels of a colliery in regional New South Wales, Lithgow. I have a feeling that's my friend Kim. So great to have you here, Kim. And he said he might be even having a single malt on this call. So
the last person was from Bath, you said, right?
Yeah, Bath in the UK. Yeah.
I am one of the few people in the United States who have been to Bath.
Yeah, I've been to Bath too. You've been to the Roman baths there, and it's fantastic.
Got a gorge, the whole business. Okay, good.
It's a gorgeous town. Love it. Yeah. Okay, so let's go back to this topic, because I know we get easily sidetracked with all the wonderful people and comments here. And if you've got questions around explaining value, let us know in chat. What are some common mistakes that people make when they approach this topic of explaining their value? I've got some ideas because I've been that person. What have you noticed from the consultants you work with?
Well, I think the fundamental problem is they don't know what the value is. And so you say to somebody, tell me what you do. And they say, all right, I train people, I speak, I sweep the floors, I massage people's backs. I mean, these are all tasks. There's no value in that. The value is in what it produces. I mean, so if you rub people's backs, but the result is that I help people get in touch with themselves and have a more mellow day, fair enough. Okay, I got that. So you have to be able to express your value, in our case, in terms of business outcomes. And I don't think they do that sufficiently. They talk about tasks and methodology and how they go about doing things. Nobody cares. What they care about is, how am I better off? So I think that's the fundamental problem. What do you think?
Yeah, I think, well, I agree with you. I think, and when I started off, I was talking about, I'm a trainer, I facilitate, that's the methodology. And you've always said to me to stop talking about methodology. It's almost like a swear word now, right? I try to avoid it. I think the other thing is, a lot of people that work in our fields I think we're creative and we think we're maybe a unicorn and we want to be very special. So for me, describing the uniqueness is, what's that special one-liner I can put on my LinkedIn profile or my website header that someone will see that and immediately want to work with me? There's a lot of pressure when you put a lot of, effort into that one line. What do you think about that?
Well, I think that if you look at great testimonials and endorsements, nobody's saying, well, he showed up on time every day. She didn't steal anything. What they're saying is, we reduced our attrition. We improved our margins and so forth. And by the way, I just hate this phrase unicorn. I mean, if everybody uses unicorn, and a unicorn is supposed to be a rare, mythical type animal, that destroys the entire image. I saw this great cartoon. It's Noah's Ark, and they're on deck, and the two unicorns, because he took two of everything, have been killed. And he says, all of you predators, you're restricted to the third deck.
Bit of a Hunger Games scenario on that third deck.
Right. You see bears and lions, they kill the unicorns. Anyway, we move on.
Sounds like another sort of action movie. Bears versus.
I can see it streaming, actually. Have you changed how you talk about your value from the time that you started your business to now?
Oh, massively. And even and I think it's putting less pressure on myself as well. And I think what I learned from you is, especially when you're in conversation with someone, when they ask you what you do, it's keeping it really quite brief. And even that line around, I improve organizational performance. What that does is it opens up a conversation, right? Then they ask, how do you do that? So it's less pressure around, I've got to nail this perfect one-liner they're going to just fall in love with me, and going, let's open up a conversation. Let's keep it real and not play at a metaphorical level. So let's see how I can work with you in your business. So using questions and actually shifting the focus off you and over to them.
Right. And the example you use, though, is interesting because there's a danger there. And that is, it's a two-step process. So I say, well, I improve individual and organizational results. Now, the only logical response to that is, how do you do that? Which is what you said. But the trap is, you go into your methodology then. Instead, what you have to say is, I'll tell you what, instead of talking theoretically, tell me about an organizational issue you're facing that you'd like to resolve, and I'll tell you how I'd work with you. That changes the tenor of the conversation. So you can't I didn't mention my technology. Well, how do you do what you do? Well, I get people together in classrooms, and you're sunk, You're
sunk. Yeah, exactly. And I think it just, I love it because then it shifts the focus off you and onto them, and then you're into actual dialogue, which is more important.
Yeah.
Just want to share a few comments. We've got, hey, Megan. Megan's joining us. Megan's in New York State. Laura's in Orlando. And we have AJ who's saying that, Alan, if you visit, he'll take you for lunch.
Hey, I'll go anywhere for free food. Okay. But
absolutely.
But it's got to be ethnic food. UK doesn't have really great native food. I mean, neither does Australia. I'll insult everyone. So
yeah,
so
that's your food, Well, see, Alan, you insulting everyone is actually a point of difference, right? You are provocative. This is how you actually made waves. What, back in the 80s? I'm not going to say 70s. I'm assuming it's the 80s. And that was strategic. You're like, out of all the thousands of consultants, how do I stand out?
Oh, I don't discriminate. I mean, I'll insult anybody. And but I think the point is that you're better off having somebody tell you the truth about something than having somebody lie to you. So we see people who, let's say, they get up and make a presentation, which is awful, and people say, "Oh, you did so well. You ought to be on television." So they never improve. So they think, "Oh, I've already made it." So I'd rather have honest negative criticism than false positive critique, and that's what you have to get used to. So the people in my community, have opted into candor. And if they don't want candor, okay, you don't belong in my community.
Yeah, you're setting the right expectation and obviously attracting the right people into that community. So for those, like if you're a new consultant, let's just say you've worked in an organization, you're stepping out and you want to discover what your point of difference is. There's a lot of consultants out there that can reduce attrition. Is it then reliant on your personal brand and how you're showing up, the content you're producing that can make you stand out in a market?
No. And I believe in the 1% solution. You improve by 1% a day. In 70 days, you're twice as good. So for some people listening to this now or listening to it later, this might be 1%. That's a great example you've given. So I reduce attrition, and therefore, I help you reduce expenses. And you say to me, well, how are you different from other people who reduce attrition? And I say, because right now what you're doing when you lose someone is you're replacing them. And the fact is, you shouldn't replace anybody who's doing yesterday's job. You should ask what tomorrow's job is. And I will tell you from my experience that half the time it's different and the other half it's not needed. And so I'm the person who helps you do that. So that's an example of using intellectual property to put a different slant on what it seems like everybody else does.
Yeah. And I love that, like that you've shared that in the context of a conversation, but you also use the word intellectual property. So that's content that you can produce and share that will then differentiate you from others.
And protect. That's right. So you trademark it or you copyright it, you put it in books, you put it in speeches, you put it in conversation, as long as you show a commercial use. And that does differentiate you tremendously, because people will say, well, I don't want to go into sales. I don't want to go into strategy. There are too many people in it. Yeah. That opens market. Competition opens markets. So the trick is not to avoid the market, but to enter the market with a different perspective. And I chose to be contrarian because I can defend my views. I can produce social proof. You don't have to be as radical as I am, but you do have to be different. You have to look at things in a different manner. And the reality is, the social proof is, your sales manager leaves for another job. And you say, oh God, I'll promote my best salesperson, a sales manager, in which case you're going to ruin 2 jobs. Right? So you say to yourself, do I need a sales manager? Now that sounds like heresy. But the fact is, since the Industrial Revolution, we've been adding layers of management. So it's proper to ask 150 years later, do we really need that position anymore?
Yeah. And I think even when you said that, that provoked a reaction in me. Like I kind of, it created an emotional response, which is that's what you do. That's the kind of reaction you want to create. I like that you said that we all don't have to be contrarian and as radical as you are. I don't think I could defend every view. But what I think is important is even reflecting on your own interests. And so sharing metaphors and stories from your background. And Alan, on the show multiple times, we've spoken about netball and use that as a metaphor for things.
Yeah.
Right. So that's the uniqueness. It's like my story. No one can take that away from me, but I'm bringing elements of who I am into these examples.
One of the things we talked about in Florida was the fact that we need to develop social proof, and it's all around us, but we don't look at it. And so every day something's happening to show that. So, I look out here in the morning. I have squirrel proof feeders, bird feeders, squirrel proof, except for one squirrel. And this one squirrel beats the system because he hangs with his foot off one and stretches precariously to a second one and manages to eat at risk to life and limb. I mean, he could fall on the ground and hit his head. But there's one, and I know it's the same squirrel. I can recognize him. And so what I'm thinking is, good for him. He's got to eat too.
Yeah.
But maybe what you need isn't another member of the infantry. Maybe you need an acrobat. And but I could pick that example up from there. I can pick up an example from any place. And odds are the person I'm talking to is either going to say, I know a squirrel like that, or I used to have a person like that. So I think it's very, very important to use these analogies because it saves you a whole bunch of selling.
Yeah, that's right. And I think, and people are a little bit scared sometimes to put themselves into the story. But if you're an observer of life, I think that's really powerful. If you are joining us, let us know in chat if you've got any questions or follow-ups for Alan. I remember, I think a really great example of this was in Hawaii. And I think you were talking about the chops on an aircraft. And I remember that. It was so powerful. Do you want to share that with us now? Because if you remember that.
What did you say? Chopped what?
The chops on an airplane?
Chops?
Like, the chocks that stop the plane from the park, that they park up the plane.
Oh,
and
okay. Chocks. Okay, I got you.
Yeah, the chocks.
Yeah.
Did I say chops? I think I did.
CHOCKS. Well, yeah, I speak a little Spanish, but no Australian, so we're okay. Yeah, so you had this massive airline, or even a 747, an A380, had these massive airliners. And I noticed that as soon as they stop at the gate, these guys run under them, and put chocks in front and back of the wheels. And that's because even this massive thing is capable of moving if you don't stop it. But these small blocks, this big, can prevent it from moving. And so there are two lessons here. One is inertia is the tendency of an object at rest to stay at rest, or in motion to stay in motion. So they're reversing inertia here from motion to stop. The second thing is very small objects can halt what you're doing. And so that means very small objects can halt what somebody else is doing too. So it doesn't take huge grand gestures to overcome the competition. But a lot of people screw themselves up because they say things like, I'm overwhelmed. I have writer's block. I can't finish this today. What will they think of me? These are small blocks holding up their careers.
I agree. What do we do? I mean, I have to ask, and I know this is directly related to this topic, but that self-talk, I'm not creative, I have writer's block. What do you do to get past that?
Well, you have to remove those blocks, those chocks. And so you have to talk to somebody like you or me or someone who can say, for example, what I tell people, I'll use my own example. There's no such thing as writer's block, so you can't have it. And they say, what do you mean? I can't sit down and write. I said, tell you what, you got your keyboard? Yeah. Okay. Write a word. You got it? Yeah. Okay. Incorporate that. Write two more words that seem to fit. Okay. Make a sentence, put a period. You have a sentence? Yeah. Okay. Write 3 sentences. Okay. I got my 3 sentences. I said, congratulations. You're on writer's block.
Yeah.
I can't coach people. Has anyone ever come to you for advice? Well, yeah. Did you give them advice? Like, did you give them advice about a restaurant or a vacation spot? Well, yeah, I did that out of courtesy. And did they use it and agree with it? Oh, yeah, they loved it. Congratulations, you're a coach.
It is just getting out of your own head and like kind of doing the thing, isn't it?
Well, this is why we call this thing talk your walk. Walk your talk is, walking your talk is fine as an exemplar. But if you don't talk your walk, if you don't blow your own horn, there is no music.
Yeah. And actually just on that, I want to share one of the activities we did in Vegas last time was just getting the headline of the newspaper and writing something about it. And I think that's such a good practice, because once you start looking at headlines and then thinking, how does this relate to my work? That was a good start. And then I started looking at, observing things around me as well. And animals are really good for that too. Like birds are probably the best. We had a turkey just in our backyard that was building their nest in the wrong spot. And I think, there was an analogy there as well. The other thing I want to...
Well, we use some dopey examples. I mean, I'm sitting in Nantucket, looking at the lawn, looking at the ocean. And in the early morning, all these robins come down and catch worms. And I'm saying, oh, yeah, the early bird catches the worm. And then I said, yeah, but the early worm gets eaten. So.
There we go. Very contrarian. Now, I think another way of sharing your uniqueness is not only the content you produce or the results that you get. I think it's the process in terms of how you get there. Something that stood out for me working with you is you always say speed is more important than perfection. So before meeting Alan, like I would spend maybe over a week on a proposal. And now it's like within 24 hours, get it turned around. And I think prospects are just like, wow, she did that. Wonder what she can do for us when we eventually work with her. Like, so you're communicating through how you're showing up. Talk us through more about that importance of speed now, particularly, in 2024.
Well, right now, everybody wants things instantly because they Google information and they get email and they return it. So, but notice though, it's not a matter of being available. It's a matter of responsiveness. And what people are really happy about is quick responsiveness, not picking up your email at 7 p.m. because somebody called you, but you get back to them in the morning. And I think you have to understand that, we use another sports analogy, people talk about a hockey stick problem, and that is, this is low labor. But when you get, that's 80%. So I say when you 80% move, But the last 20% is like that, very high labor. And so speed is important, but the way you achieve speed is you eschew. You don't worry about the final 20%. Nobody cares. And you can always fine tune as you're moving. But the last 20% I put into a speech, nobody hears. Last 20% into a book, nobody reads. And so 80% ready, you move. That's speed.
Yeah. And that goes back into, I think, an earlier Talk the Walk episode around self-esteem and being fearless. Right.
And being confident. Yes, you're exactly right.
Yeah. Otherwise we self-edit and we feel like we're being judged. I think there's like this sort of one thing that I find very refreshing and I just constantly remind myself of is that nobody actually cares. Everyone is so self-absorbed. Like everyone is on LinkedIn checking their own notifications that no one actually cares about. I don't know. That's how I feel about it. I just don't think I'm that important. And so that's why I'm okay to move at 80%. I don't think anyone's putting me under a spotlight as much as I am.
Well, I think the problem with LinkedIn is that it's open to anybody. And so you have people, here are the 14 steps to deal with conflict. Here are the 22 graphics you need to consult before you're a leader, and so forth and so on. The problem is none of these people are leaders. None of these people are great consultants. None of these people are great managers. All they do is come up theoretically with what to do, and it's pointless. I mean, leaders do not take out charts and consult them and say, I wonder how I should deal with this unhappy client. They do it viscerally. They do it because they just know how to do it. And if you hang around them, you'll learn through osmosis. You'll learn through observation. So these people who string 14 initials after their name, like breadcrumbs through the woods, are trying to impress you with their credibility. I get suspicious when I see them. It's like instead of expertise, they have initials. And so nobody ever said, go out and hire somebody with a lot of initials. That's what we need here.
Well, it's even like when I see speakers that spend the first 10 minutes of their speech talking about how good they are. I'm like, just demonstrate your greatness through what you're about to share with us. Like it is a signal.
Well, don't you love the speaker who's 40 pounds overweight and divorced twice and chain smokes and drinks heavily and tells you to get control of your life?
Some would say that's controversial. I agree with you, Alan. Now, what are some practical strategies if you want to build up your positioning, establish yourself as the best in the market, or, maybe not the best, but improve where you currently are? What are some practical things you'd suggest?
Have other people talk about you. So, for example, if you look at social media as an example, people take pictures of auditoriums where they're going to be speaking, but they're empty. People thank a client for having them there. I was so happy to address your people. What you need is a testimonial from people who are in there saying, oh my God, we were so glad you were here. We learned so much. We're putting this to use right away. What you need is a picture of a full auditorium. What you need is people who are proclaiming how much you've done for them. So the first and foremost thing is have other people talk about you. That's how you build a brand. Yeah. The second thing is to not, well, you said fearless before. You need to be fearless about having an independent view of things. And like I said, it might not be radical, but it needs to be different. And it's not that hard. I mean, if you just look at a normal function, like replacing someone, I gave an example of maybe you should do that differently. If you look at a function, let's say like taking on board a new client, you have to say something like, listen, no two clients are alike. And so why don't you treat them as individuals or individual organizations and not just as people who are coming on board like everybody else? I just tried to, and you got to shop yourself. You have to shop your business. I just tried to buy something online, and it's from a club.
Okay. Yeah.
And after I picked out things I wanted, I couldn't get to the cart. There was no way to get back to the cart. So I wrote to the president, and he got back to me within an hour, which I was impressed with. And he said, oh my God, I just tried what you said. I couldn't do it either. He said, so I have to get our IT people to change this. Well, the thing is, good for him. It's good to correct that. But the better thing is you shop your business so you know that can't happen.
Yeah. I mean, and that's what I've been doing while I've been away here on my radical reboot. I went onto the front page of my website and there was stuff there. And I'm like, what the heck? This doesn't reflect who I am now. Like, get rid of that. It was embarrassing. But I hadn't actually like scrolled through and gone, what is that doing on the front page of my own site? Just appalling. Anyway, but that's why you need space. If you're here, let us know in the comments what was one thing that stood out for you today. We'd love to hear your thoughts and share some of those comments. In the meantime, Alan, what have you got coming up?
Let's see. On Monday, it's Wednesday evening here. So this coming Monday, I'm doing a program on brevity and how not to be loquacious, how not to be verbose. So this is a big problem with people. In another few weeks after that, I'm doing something on steam. It's called the esteem machine because people's esteem is so low. This is on my website, and they're 90-minute Zoom sessions. You mentioned I'll be in Las Vegas at the end of October. And on Halloween, I'm doing something on how to be spontaneous. In other words, I'm going to teach you how to be spontaneous. No one's ever done this. This is brand new. This is like a magic act. And so I'm going to talk about how to do that. So, and in the meantime, in a couple of weeks, we'll go to Rome to fool around.
Oh, wonderful.
How about you? How about you?
Cool. Yeah, I've got the day before you're running that session in Vegas, I'm hosting a small sort of mastermind session there on building return on luck, which is going to be fantastic. I'm also doing a session with Sally Prosser in November. That's in Brisbane. It's called Get to the Point. Very similar to your brevity session. And then I'm also hosting a retreat, a red carpet camp out. This beautiful, there's going to be luxury tents. That's in March 2025. So just starting a wait list on that. One or two comments coming through. Quick question. We'll definitely tackle this just before we head off. I totally agree with the people speaking with authority on topics I believe they're not authorities on. Can you suggest any other way we can impart coaching to a broader audience that isn't always one-to-one?
So I infer that means you not coaching one person, but coaching more than one person. I'll tell you the best way to do that so that people really learn. Coach people in a fishbowl exercise. I've done this online, and you have a volunteer in advance. So you're not waiting for anyone. You have a volunteer in advance who's there for free. You get them for free. And they state an issue, and everybody else there pays to be there. Mm-hmm. And they watch the coaching process. They don't comment. They don't add comments to the volunteer. But I successfully coach them. You successfully coach them. And then you debrief on what happens. What did I actually do? What steps did I take? What was a critical, pivotal point? And that's a good way because everybody in the audience learns a great deal. And I consider them being coached as well.
Yeah, that's a really great format. I love that idea of a fishbowl. And something I've done is if people write in with questions, I'll just record response on a podcast, or even do what Alan and I are doing right now, which is grabbing your questions, answering on a live stream is scalable too. So Dee shares small chocks, CHOCKS, can even hold up a jumbo jet. Thank you, Dee. Yeah. So what are those small things?
Chocks.
I know there's a bit of banter in there around the spelling of it, which is hilarious. Dominic says, loaded with golden IP and wisdom. Thank you both. Thanks for being here, Dominic.
You're welcome.
LinkedIn user, understanding and articulating your value has made me think about if I can answer that. Yeah, cool. Don't even think about it. Like, just get out there and start practicing. And I think thinking about it can be the problem, right? Overthinking. So try things, create content, share the love online. I'm going to share the love with you, Alan. It's always great hanging out on Talk the Walk sessions. Our next one is on, I think, the 3rd of October, your time.
3rd of October, my time, yes.
4th of October here. And with that, I'm going to give you a final toast. Thanks for being here. We'll pop up the event very soon, and we'll see you on the next Talk the Walk.
Thank you all.
Thank you.